Hi, my name is Ellis. I've been a teacher for 15 years. I was a teacher for 15 years. I was a biology teacher, in fact. So some of the things I've seen today, which I wasn't expecting to see, some of the 3D things downstairs were amazing. And I really wish I had those resources available to me back when I was teaching. When I started, perhaps like many of you, I had a blackboard with a piece of chalk. That's the technology I started teaching with. Just to say a little bit about myself, after teaching I then went on to various roles in teacher training and using technology. I worked for the UK government for a period where we were investing heavily in technology, putting interactive whiteboards and other technologies in every school in the country, a massive investment. I now work for this organisation, European Schoolnet, and I'm going to start by telling you a little bit about that. First of all though, I would like to know a little bit about you. So would you mind, if you're a teacher, just put your hand in the air. I hope we've still got some teachers in the room. So I guess I have to wait for the translation. Okay, good. Okay, good. I'm going to try and involve you a little bit later on. I've got some questions for you and I need your answers. I need some feedback from you on those questions a little bit later on. Okay, so I'll come to that. But first, as I say, I'm just going to talk about this organisation, European Schoolnet. European Schoolnet represents 30 ministries of education in Europe. So you may detect by my voice that I am English, but I in fact come from a Belgian organisation. It's based in Belgium, but it's European. And the Turkish Ministry of Education is one of those organisations. So I work for you, for your government as well, within this organisation. We support what you're doing. We are trying to support what you're doing in your schools by helping you. 30 ministries, as it says there, dedicated to supporting schools, trying to find the best use of technology. As I said at the beginning, I worked for the UK government when we invested a lot of money in technology, in hardware, infrastructure, that kind of thing. What had to come next was how do we use that? And what European Schoolnet are doing are looking at how we best use this technology. Improve and raise the quality of education in Europe. I think we're all very aware that Europe right now faces a big challenge. Our young people face a big challenge. As we get older, we've left them with a legacy to deal with, and we've got to do our best to prepare them for that. We've got to give them the right skills. I'll talk a bit more about that in a minute. Promote the European dimension. Very much what we do in European Schoolnet is bring different countries together to cooperate. And I'll talk about a specific project in a minute. So these are our 3 strategic aims, really, just summarised there. Some of you may have heard of European Schoolnet. Some of you may already be involved in our projects. Perhaps, have any of you heard of the e-twinning network? Are any of you e-twinning teachers? This is perhaps one of the most successful collaborations of teachers across Europe, bringing teachers together to share ideas, to actually collaborate in learning and teaching across European schools. Are there any e-twinning teachers here at the moment? No? Okay. This project, iTech, is one I'm going to talk about in a minute. I am actually the director of this project. Ingenious, another science project. A large scope of projects and activities. These top projects are all funded by the European Commission. The aim, as I say again, is to bring schools from Europe together to collaborate, to share good practice. These are some bilateral projects. These projects are funded by those organisations. ASA, for example, we did a large study on the use of tablet technology in schools. Our results of that you can find on their website. And Fourier, looking at the use of their technologies, their science technologies particularly. And there are some other projects. This gives you a feel for the scope of the work we do. The Future Classroom Lab, again, I'll talk about that. It's about the classroom of the future. Now, I said to begin with, I wanted to involve you in this presentation. Have a think for a moment. 10 years into the future, if you're a teacher particularly, what will your classroom look like? Picture in your mind your future classroom. I may have a picture of it up here. I may better read your minds. We're also at the moment, European Schoolnet is doing a very large survey of schools across Europe. 11,000 schools. If you filled in a survey in the last 6 months, you may have been filling in this one. Now, we've talked a lot today. I have to say, there have been some very good speakers, I've heard, very inspiring, very thought-provoking speakers. They've talked about the same sorts of things that I have here, about innovation, bringing change into education, but innovation bringing positive change, change with positive results, not just change for change's sake. Training, pre-service and in-service. One of the things we focus on across Europe is how do we train teachers? How do we prepare them for that innovation? When we provide you with technology or new ideas, how do we make sure that teachers are actually prepared to use them and use them effectively? Another one of our focus areas. And mainstreaming. This is the big problem. This is the big challenge, mainstreaming. Many of you being here today are probably quite innovative teachers. The fact that you're here suggests you're the sort of teacher that likes to experiment and learn new things. And there are lots of projects, like the ones we've heard today, the 3D project as well, that have a lot to offer the education system across Europe, will help us out of the challenge that we face. But mainstreaming is really the barrier. How do we get it from not just a few positive teachers, but to every teacher? How do we get that adoption? Now, part of the answer to this is the project that I personally run. It is one of the biggest education projects that's ever happened in Europe. And it's called iTech. And iTech means innovative technologies for engaging classrooms. So innovation, technology, engagement in the classroom. But we like to call it designing the future classroom. So bear that in mind. Have that vision in your head of your classroom where you'll be teaching in 10 years' time. Just to give you a bit of the scope, I said it was a large project. Highlighted on the screen there are our partners. You can see we cover all of those countries. Within each country there are multiple partners. It's huge and complex. I'm going to try and simplify it for you if I can. As you see, Turkey is also represented there. Maybe I haven't asked yet. Are any of you actually involved in this project? Are any of you actually involved in iTech? Any of the teachers here? Could you put your hand up again if you're a teacher involved in iTech? If not, that's a good thing for me because I'm going to invite you later to become a part of it, to become involved. I have to say, I met with a group of Turkish teachers recently in London during a conference we had around the BET show, and they were some of the most motivated, enthusiastic teachers there, full of good ideas. Turkey is a particularly good partner of ours in this project. So we have 27 project partners. 14 of those partners are ministries of education. This is very much a strategic level activity, but it's very much involving teachers so we can work from the bottom and get those good ideas and push them up to those people in positions of power in Europe. Okay, so this vision of your future classroom. I'm going to show you an image now. Tell me if you think your classroom of the future looks like this. Okay, put your hands up if you think your classroom in 10 years' time will look like that. Okay, that's a good sign. So I'll show you another image. Maybe this is your future classroom, the next one. Hands up if your classroom's going to look like that in 10 years' time. No? Okay. I'm not really sure what that is. It's very futuristic, but whether it's a classroom, I'm really not sure. What about this last attempt? Will your future classroom look like this? How many of you? How many of you like that idea? Oh, more hands. Good. More hands. Okay. What is the answer? It's a very bold project we have, iTech, because we are designing the future classroom. But that's quite an important point. There you go, there's the question again. Which one of these is more likely? There are lots of visionaries out there. There are lots of reports, lots of studies that have been done. Other projects that have tried to predict the future classroom. In some of these studies, there will be no classrooms in the future. Everyone will learn from home, on the beach, in the forest, somewhere perhaps more pleasant than the average classroom. There is the reality of the moment, the economic situation that suggests that we cannot afford to build new classrooms, and therefore we will be teaching in the same environments that we have now. Perhaps that first black and white picture going back to, that was the environment I was taught in, and I've taught as a teacher in those black and white schools with rows of desks. That's a familiar environment. But the important thing is, we don't know. We don't know what the future classroom is going to look like, but it is our job, everybody here in this room, me and you, teachers, the government people, the suppliers as well, it's our job to create the future classroom, not try and guess at it, not try and predict it, but actually to design it, to create it, to come up with what it should be like, and then put that into practice. That's our job. Trying to predict the future is pretty much impossible. I'm sure we've all seen examples of predictions of the future. I've seen black and white films of robot cleaners, robots doing the ironing and the hoovering. Again, hands up, how many of you have a robot doing your hoovering and ironing?
She wouldn't like it all like that.
Not many of you. I have a robot hoover. I have a small robot hoover, bought it very recently. It doesn't work at all. Goes around, runs out of power, and gets clogged up. So predictions of the future don't work. I guess you would recognize this statement if I read it out. We choose to go to the moon in this decade and do the other things, not because they are easy, but because they are hard. Okay? I'm sure you're familiar with that statement and who said it. Perhaps one of our greatest challenges in the 20th century, perhaps our greatest achievement, and it's a technological achievement. It involved technology. Didn't really involve people to a great extent. It involved money and technology. And perhaps a lot of people think that that's what schools need to change. That's what we need to do with our education system. Technology. Push technology and put money into it, and then change will come, change will happen. I think in England, in the UK, we have proved that pushing money into schools and technology doesn't bring about change. So that challenge, that wasn't a difficult challenge. That just took money and technology. What's challenging is changing people, changing people's way of working, changing people's minds about what they do and how they do it. This graph, this simplistic graph, is meant to show you something which is fairly obvious, something we all know, which is if you were to look at classrooms in Europe, you would find that there are some classrooms that are very innovative. You'd walk into some classrooms and see exciting, interesting things happening. We've heard about some of those classrooms using 3D technology, clearly. If I walked in there and saw what I've heard today, I would find that very innovative. Up one end of the scale. In the middle, though, most classrooms you go to in Europe are doing things which they've been doing for a very long time. Get out your books, read this, maybe look at a video, look at my PowerPoint, that kind of stuff. Not too exciting. Our challenge is not going to the moon, but is to shift this curve in that direction. To make sure that most teachers, all teachers, are doing innovative, exciting, engaging things. Now, we could ask Texas Instruments to give every teacher in Europe one of their projectors. I don't think that's not going to happen, though, is it? And we can't really ask that of them. So we're going to come up with other ways of doing this. And this is the way we do it in iTech. It's quite simple, but it's powerful, and it's starting to work. We bring people together. You have technology providers, you have teachers, you have academics, very clever people who know about education, and you have teachers. And they all live in different parallel worlds. In iTech, the thing we do is bring them all together and get them to design learning scenarios, learning activities, using the technology, meeting the national policy objectives and the international challenge that we have, and using technology to its best, and based on teachers' realities, what teachers know about what does and doesn't work in the classroom. We bring them together and we have workshops. We then test those ideas out in schools. We pilot them. So I asked earlier whether some of you were involved in this project, because some of you may have been involved in these pilots, where we asked you to run through these learning scenarios, these learning activities. We then provide technology, the technology that's needed, and we're developing a range of technologies for that. Again, working with industry. The next step is to provide training and support. And finally, coming back to that really important word, mainstreaming. How do we take it from a handful of teachers who have got the right ideas to every teacher in Europe, spreading the message? How do we do the mainstreaming? And that goes back to, again, those key stakeholders, working with governments, working with strategy and policy makers, but also working with technology providers. So they're not just providing technologies, but with that they're providing the ideas of how to make best use of their technology. These are some examples, pictures of some scenarios. Things that you may or may not recognise, things that you might find familiar, things that you do, maybe you don't. I learned, for example, on this project, that for many countries, the idea of taking your learners out of the school building into the wide world on a field trip or around the town is not done. It's not the norm. Where I come from, that's very normal. There are real differences in Europe in what people do. Being the expert, I've heard that in some countries, maybe in Turkey, the idea of having people coming from the outside into the classroom, experts, scientists, doctors, sports people, that can be very engaging. Bring them into the classroom. In some countries that's done, but not all countries. These are our scenarios, new ideas for changing the way we involve people in teaching and learning. What I'm going to do now is, rather than talk about this, I'm going to show you a small movie of one of our scenarios, just one of our early scenarios. Now again, particularly the teachers in the audience, I want to ask you a question here, and this is where I really need your feedback, because this does feed into the project. Okay? Have a look at this and say to yourself, is this what happens in classrooms in Turkey? Is this what we do every day of the week? Or is this different?
Miss Rossi, a science teacher, has been working with a geography teacher. Their students need to develop a more in-depth understanding of the local natural environment. The students would also benefit from more group learning activities. Miss Rossi decides on a collaborative problem-based activity related to nature and the local environment. She plans the project together with the geography teacher so that it will benefit both of their classes. She sets her class a challenge. Why has the population of ladybirds increased in the school grounds lately? How would you find out? I would go outside with the others to collect real data. Everyone has a different role and a different instrument. I would use my mobile phone to take photos of areas with many ladybirds, while others survey their surrounding and record the temperature. Miss Rossi takes the role of observer and coach. She takes notes on what skill each learner needs to develop, so she can design later activities properly. She realizes the group needs more training on using instruments without disturbing wildlife, and also how to set group goals. After taking a series of photos, Carmen comes back to class with her group. They share their findings with each other. They get support from Miss Rossi on how to use a software package to draw conclusions from their numerical data. They work together using laptops to create a video explaining their findings. Carmen and another student upload their photos, while the rest of the group writes the script. They each record their voice and use the editing software to finalize the video. The video is posted on the school's learning platform for the class to view for homework and for students in the geography class to comment on. The group also posts the video on the public internet so they can show it to their parents when they get home.
So I asked you a question before about that lesson. Now you may or may not think that's a good lesson or something you could do. If you're a science teacher, it may make some sense. The important thing about that lesson isn't the technology. The important thing about that lesson is it packs in lots of 21st century skills, the skills that young people will need for the future. If you work in projects like I do, you know the importance of collaboration, the importance of communication skills, the importance of confidently making decisions and helping other people find answers to their problems. These are all skills that aren't necessarily being taught in European schools. Still, people are learning to listen, to sit like we are now and absorb information. Now, part of this is about how we assess, obviously, learners as well. So we're looking at assessment as well in all of that. So again, that was quite advanced. The last time now, I think I'm going to ask you a question. Put your hands up again if you think that that sort of level of use of technology, that effective use of technology of that level is happening as normal in schools in Turkey. Okay, so no one put their hand up. That's interesting. You're not alone. It's the same for any European country at the moment. That's clearly advanced stuff. All those technologies that are available. And there are various challenges on the way that we need to address. So when designing these learning activities, we go back to teachers and say, why aren't you teaching in this way? What are the problems? And some of these we've discussed already. The security, the physical nature of the classroom, the security, the infrastructure, all these challenges. If learners can't bring their own mobile phones into the class and take pictures and connect that to their internet in school, if they can't do that, that's a barrier to that kind of learning and those kinds of skills. And what we're doing in iTech in particular is trying to find ways to enable collaboration and sharing and connecting people. We see people as being a learning resource, perhaps one of the most important. Looking at how we can use the IT, the internet, that kind of social networking paradigm to help join people together so that young people can connect to their teachers when they need to, other experts can connect to their friends, can connect with their parents, can work together. I'm just going to finish with one other short film, and this talks about another strategy which is very much a part of our project and our work, and we call it the Future Classroom Lab. It's difficult for me to talk about the future classroom. It's much easier if I were to show you it or invite you to come to it and have a look around yourself and play with the technology. We've talked about 3D today. You've had the opportunity to see it. I bet you'd like to have the opportunity to play with it. That's what the Future Classroom Lab provided by European Schoolnet does. Actually, I say provided by European Schoolnet. It's actually provided by many of the industry members who we work with. And I believe Texas Instruments is one organisation that's looking at also becoming a part of this facility. Let me just give you a bit more information about that in this film. So the Future Classroom Lab is funded by European Ministers of Education, the 30 members of the organisation, and also by those industry members you saw at the end there. And the aim of that facility is to invite teachers to come and experiment and practice, invite learners as well, of course, or to help countries develop their own similar facilities for that local training. So that just gives you a taste of what European Schoolnet does. I just want to finish by talking about the 3D technology I've seen today. What we're looking for in iTech, in the project, is innovation, examples of innovation that works, and packaging it all together as a set of learning, inspirational ideas. So I've been very interested, very excited about what I've seen today on the 3D technology, and I do hope we can get that technology and those experiences into the iTech project so we can share that as much across Europe as we can. Okay, thank you.